Welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio. And today is Tuesday, July the 1st, 2025. I'm not sure where June went, but here we are in July. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Delighted, honored that you're here, and that we get to move to the next level of this conversation on shifting and changing our lives in the direction of incarnating love in the world, which seems to be, with the insanity going on in the world, a necessary feature. It's interesting, there was a gentleman who wrote a book, David R. Hawkins, on energy, and he developed what he called a map of consciousness. And he developed scales, which on the lower end measured the energy patterns of things like shame, guilt, and fear. And on the higher end of the scale, things like love, joy, serenity, and enlightenment. And he wrote a book called Power versus Force. And when you look at the way the world thinks of things, if someone has strength, or what they call force, then they think they've got power. But the truth is, that isn't power. That's weakness masquerading as strength or force. And one of the things that he spoke about was that those who would actually do the work of cleaning up the generational energy patterns within themselves, those that would tap into the presence of love and remove that which did not support love, would create a counterbalancing energy to the insanity of the world. And he used a logarithmic scale, and let's see, his calibrations, he assigned numerical values. I've just got some notes here on it. And he defined things, for instance, as courage at 200 on his scale of 1,000, love at 500, peace at 600, enlightenment 700 to 1,000. And being logarithmic, a small increase in that numerical value was a monumental, just a huge increase in the counterbalancing effect of those constructive energies. And some of the numbers that he brought forward, he said that one individual at the level of what he called optimism and willingness, which was around 310 on his scale, would counterbalance the negativity of 90,000 individuals at lower levels. An individual at what he called an illumination or bliss, 540 to 600, would counterbalance the negativity of 10 million people at lower levels. A person, one individual, according to his measurements, living at the level of what he called grace or pure spirit, which would be above 600, would counterbalance the negativity of 70 million people. You know, and it ties right in with the idea from the Course in Miracles: when you are healed, you are never healed alone. There was a group out in California, actually, when I was traveling several years ago with the Caboris manuscript, and I took the manuscript to them, and they measured the manuscript, and they said that the manuscript on his scale measured if I remember correctly, it was 970 something. And the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, they said measured at 920. And the whole objective of this work is to not get into a positive thinking mode. There are a lot of things out there, life is good, God loves you, blah, 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 blah. But what this work is about is taking the words and the work of Yeshua. You look back 2,000 years ago, and he gave instructions, and many to whom he gave instructions simply refused to hear, refused to do anything about it. In fact, one particular passage is recorded where a number of those who were considered to be his disciples, when he took them to the next level of demand, this is what you need to do, their response is recorded as saying, too hard a saying, who can hear it? And they left. And the actual work of Yeshua, the moving forward, not just trying to think of a way to say this, where churchianity, so to speak, has all kinds of rituals to engage in, but how many are actually about confronting self, confronting the lower energies in self, and doing something about it? And it seems like with the growing negativity in the world, in certain circles politically, the wars, the rumors of wars, all that's going on, that we need as many individuals as possible to move into the willingness to do their work and shift this collective field toward the higher energies of love on the physical, the mental, the emotional plane, and literally across the population, across the world. So negative states, of course, are reflected as suffering, pain, and trauma, disease processes. And moving into the active presence of love literally dissolves those energetic patterns. And that's the whole objective here, is to be one who faces any energetic pattern and recognizing that our individual energetic patterns are not just our own, but rather also reflective of generations and generations and generations of energetic patterns. So to bring the tools forward in a way that inspires people to pick up and really do their work individually. And so it isn't that the majority has to step up, but the majority is significantly impacted by the minority who are willing to drop that conversation about too hard a saying, who can hear it, and start to look at what their own states of mind are, what their own states of hostility and fear perhaps are, and begin to work through them. So that's our objective with these tools.
So with that,
And
with that means, because I believe when I read the book, it talked about the tipping point, or wasn't it when it shifts
critical mass.
between, was it 200, calibrating at the 200 was when it actually transitioned from force to power?
I'm aware of his book, but I
Okay.
have not read it, so I don't know where his critical mass point is, where his tipping
Yeah, I
point
thought the
is.
threshold, believe it or not, he talks about that. It's years since I read the book, but he did talk about the threshold being the 10 times 10 to the 200. And then because he talked a lot about historically where humanity's consciousness was at for a long time, and then the Second World War actually shifted it. We actually went into a higher state of consciousness after that, because the rallying of individuals and consciousness. And then the next one is the 10 times 10. And I don't know where it's ever been tested to where humanity calibrates today. But yeah, that's interesting though.
I think it was 200, Susan.
Was it okay?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's what rings true to me about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm excited to just, I think I think the time is upon us. And obviously even his great work that he would actually put that into a format that our consciousness could receive is amazing.
Excuse me, I had my mute button pushed, was talking away. It's definitely time. It's definitely the space where, to me, there is ample motivation and ample information that opens a space for that change to occur. And for me, having found, after recognizing it from the first century Aramaic, having found the exact and specific definition of forgiveness in A Course in Miracles, to me says that, people are ready for it. The world is ready for it. Enough people to make that shift are ready for it. And so I'm glad you're here being part of the conversation and moving it forward on an expanded level.
You bet.
And
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be a part of this movement.
well, and I was just going to mention our conversation from last night for those who in the past have done the codependence to interdependence intensive. Susan is going to, starting in August, I think we established the date of August 4th, Susan, is that correct?
Yeah, I was looking to do it's going to be, I'm planning Sundays and Wednesdays. That'll be the dates, and I just have to look on my calendar when exactly that would start. And let me just look. July. So it
So,
would, yeah, starting August 3rd. And then, yeah, starting Sunday, August 3rd. And
well,
Wednesdays, August 6th, but weekly on those 2 days.
awesome. So for those who may not be aware of it, the intensive that we just did recently included a free subscription to the self-study of codependence to interdependence. And Susan had made a commitment to go ahead and start to do that, and several of her friends are planning on coming to the intensive we're doing in November. And so Susan, I had put the thought out, and Susan was in the conversation of, working with her, facilitating, listening to that material, creating a plan for it, and participating as a group in where so far it's been a self-study, individuals, and some individuals have taken hold of it and really gone with it, and others bought the course but didn't really do much with it. And so Susan, in our conversation last night, said she was open to everyone who would like to participate, who has purchased the course or has been through the codependence to interdependence communication practicum. And that would include anyone who did either of the two online intensives would be welcome to join her for that, starting on August 3rd and August 6th, and then proceeding on Sundays and Wednesdays from there. So we'll put together a flyer and put that out, and hopefully get a gathering of people who are willing to work together again on another level of really diving in doing the work as a community. So I'm excited about that, Susan. Delighted that you're open to that thought, and are going to put it out there. And on the 3rd, that Sunday the 3rd, we'll do an opening session, and I'll be there to participate in that as well. And just it may take a little practice and some adjustments on how we're going to approach it, but we'll just see how it unfolds. And so I'm excited you're doing that, Susan.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm just thrilled to be a part and to serve as I can to get this information out, and also just to help us all. We're all walking home, helping each other. So I really appreciate the opportunity. So thank you.
Walking each other home. And coming to the point of, there's a word that is not overly popular today, but and many things have been kept mysterious that are gifts that have been given to us, and one of them is to really do a level of one's personal work where, regardless of circumstances, doesn't mean everything's perfect in one's world, but that you really can rest in a state of grace. And my best understanding of the word grace, it's not some mystical, magical power that something's going to come down and strike you with, oh, everything's going to be wonderful in your life all of a sudden. But right from the very beginning, with our first breath, we were given a power of choice. which I equate with grace, and that is whatever path we're on, whatever our history has been, whatever our genetic, propensities have been, that we were given the ability to change our mind anytime we choose to. And I think back over the last 50 years of doing this work, and people that I've worked with that I've seen come from extreme traumatic history, and the turnarounds that they've made in their family systems in just one lifetime, or less than a lifetime, in a few years in one's life, having come from a family system of trauma and pain, and I think of some people that I've worked with of real tragedy and disaster, and have turned that around to where not only they but their families are living in that state of grace. And it really is about saying yes to awareness of oneself as the active presence of love, and the willingness to allow everything that's unlike that state to surface for healing, and to do the work, to be able to embrace, to be able to allow those energetic patterns to come forward, which is sometimes quite traumatic, and it takes a deep ongoing commitment that literally involves one's entire being to do that. And truly, like saying a real yes. And I hesitate to say it this way because of the way the world has mistreated, and how much you look at this so-called Christian nationalism that's supposed to be about God, and the hatred and the viciousness and the violence toward neighbors that's there. It's just unbelievable. But really is it's about saying a true yes to oneself as the active presence of love, a true yes to God, and bringing your entire field, thought, emotion, physiology, chemistry, mind, all into alignment, and choosing to the best of one's ability to live a life that's really reflective of the fact that we are literally created, every one of us, no matter how much we've been tricked into the lie of our power person, or the generational power person dynamic in our family system, that when we choose to go back to cultivating a relationship with ourselves once again as love, remembering who we are, remembering that we literally have this device, this physiological device we call a body-mind unit, that when it is oriented and aligned properly, is literally designed to be the antenna, the energy system that literally captures and pours the active presence of love into the world. To me, that's what Hawkins was talking about, that when one moves in that direction on deeper and deeper levels, they are literally capturing. If you look at that word prayer in the Aramaic language, it's got nothing to do with putting your order into the cosmic gift catalog, but literally what the word means in Aramaic is to set a trap for God, for love, to be the space, to be aligned, to be in resonance with love so deeply that you literally pour that energy into the world. And that's my take of what Hawkins was measuring, was doing the work required to bring yourself into alignment to do that. And along with that comes everything that somebody would call a blessing. And to immerse ourselves in that state. And in my best awareness, in the last at least 45 years, I've kind of lost track, 45, 47, 48 years, I'm not even sure at this moment, of working with the first century Aramaic words of Yeshua, that they are the most on track, here's how you do it, words that I know of. And to really align and then emulate that active presence of love. People have all kinds of churchianity things they do, they call worship. And it's usually got to do with, some Dr. Feel Good singing, doesn't this feel great? Kind of the same stuff you can get if you go to a good concert. But really, to me, the word worship is to emulate the energy field, to emulate that in which we live, move, and have our being, to bring it forward and reflect it into the world, and to be able to reflect that toward every other creature. Even Einstein spoke about that was our real purpose, was to be able to bring that into focus and extend it to every creature. And then, of course, with the political insanity going on, with the rage, the hatred, the harm that's being pointed toward immigrants, that these are neighbors. In Aramaic, the word neighbor means anybody that you think about. Is there anybody that I think about that I cannot hold to the active presence of love with? Now, I mean, it doesn't mean I have to agree with them. We may have some very deep disagreements, but if I've handled any form of hostility, fear, or trauma in me, then I can incarnate as love, and whatever someone else is doing, because I've done the work of freeing myself of anything that could be resonated by another's activities, I can free myself from it. There are many people out there that, call themselves empaths. So I feel everybody else's pain. Excuse me. You can't feel anybody else's pain, but certainly somebody else's pain can resonate your pain. If you can still feel pain, there's a reason. And the reason is there's a piece of work for you to do. There's the dual test that's offered in Course in Miracles is pretty profound. The first part of the test being, when you think of someone, are you in a state of perfect peace? Have you done your work around any and everyone in your world? If there's someone, and maybe someone who's committed horrendous offenses, the only way that you can feel disturbance or upset toward them is if there's still the energy of disturbance or upset in you. So the first test the Course offers is, when you think of anyone, are you in a state of perfect peace? And that's the easy test. The difficult test, the second part of the test is, do they share your perfect peace? That really takes things to a whole different level of responsibility. And am I willing to say yes to the work required to achieve that state? And then realizing neighbor, once again, is anybody that you think about. Is there a neighbor that thinks about you, and when they do, they're in disturbance or upset? Then, and I like how Jeannie oftentimes uses this example of, it's like a tug of war. If you're playing tug of war with someone, you pull, they pull. When they pull, you move. When you pull, they move. But if you drop your end of the rope, the game has to change. Are we willing to drop our end of the rope of any form of competition, hostility, fear, sadness, grief, rage, whatever? Even when life throws us curveballs, are we willing to stand in that state of trust? And in that state of trust, which my take only comes from our connectedness to Source, and recognizing that while we all carry around issues, there is nothing more important than staying connected to Source. And if our mind tells us that there is, then we've fallen into, once again, the mind of man. And there's the next forgiveness worksheet. There's the next piece of work to be done. And so even in challenging our difficult times, are we willing to do that and really rely on this and I'm just contemplating what word to use, that there is this awesome presence that we get to consciously, purposely interact with. And while our little minds want to make up how we want to run the roost, are we willing to yield to that sovereignty and to allow the active presence of love to be the source of our sovereignty? And whenever anything less than that happens, comes up, well, so here's my next forgiveness project. Here's the next piece of work that I need to do. Does that make sense? Is that fitting for everybody? Anybody have any thoughts in that regard?
You know what? Thank you. Yeah, for me, I really see it's how it's giving up the personal sovereignty for divine sovereignty. Like they're really getting out
Yes,
of the way.
absolutely.
And when you say setting the trap for God, that's, really being in complete attunement that my will is God's will. Yeah. And just knowing the truth of that and surrendering in, that's the work now. I was saying to Dr. Tim today, it's only been the last couple of days where I really feel that I am the love that I'm seeking.
Awesome.
And yeah, it's not ever in this body ever experienced that. And the tension that's going on the right side of the body, it's just bringing love to it and taking up a relationship with it to know it's ready to be seen and it's invited to exist in my presence, and that I can trust and I'm safe in Ruka to be the facilitator of this transformation. That's for me the willingness to step into that. Someone who felt, oh my gosh, and I did worksheets yesterday or last night about that if I didn't keep myself safe, then I'm hooped. So that perception has been running the program for my whole life. And now I get to let that go, that what you said, safety is my birthright. And now I get to rest and just trust the process and rest into life and let it unfold without me getting in the way. So that's my personal will really aligning with divine will, and we'll see when it gets revealed. So thank you. Yeah, it's what you're saying today is just so in alignment with Hawkins, all of that stuff. It's just like all the pieces of the puzzles are just dropping in to the bigger puzzle itself. Thank you.
Right. I don't know, Susan, if you've been on one of the shows where I've talked about it before, or whether I may have brought it up. I don't think I did during the intensive, but back 40 some years ago, I used to keynote at a conference out in Colorado called Global Science. And one year they brought a man in to also keynote at the conference named Marcel Vogel. And Vogel was a 23-year senior scientist from IBM. He's the guy who invented the magnetic coding that allows our computers to operate. If it weren't for Marcel Vogel, none of our computers would do what they're doing today.
And
That was
also the
his
Vogel
invention.
crystals. Isn't there a lot of beds? You can go
Exactly.
under these beds that he, yeah, I've experienced those as well.
I have one about 2.5 feet to the right of me.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
In any event, the thing that he came to the conference to present was a camera that he had been working with called the Delaware camera. And it was a camera that had a tuning mechanism in front of the aperture. And the upshot of his presentation was to show us literally the pictures of the high energy waves that leave the mind when we think a thought. That whatever we hold, if we hold energetic patterns of fear, of guilt, of shame, of attack, or as the Course says, in my defenselessness, the simple holding of a defense sets up literally, and it was in that conference that I got it from Marcel Vogel. This is a literal, measurable, high energy wave that creates an invitation. So if I have a defense against a certain issue, guess who's going to show up in my world? Guess who I'm sending out? I call it the psychic megaphone of the creative wave. I'm sending out messages. Hey, does anybody know how to hit me right here? And the guarantee of the world, the creator says, ask me for what you want and I'll send it to you. Of the works of my hand, command you me. So when it shows up, what part of me is playing in it? And am I willing to access? And, it might be something 30 generations old.
Mhm.
It's been around and impacted millions of lives between that person 30 generations ago and today, including my own. And am I willing to literally become the space that so softens every part of my field and allows my breath to reach into depth, that the root of that energy, no matter how old it is, no matter how deeply it's impacted the field, is undone by Ruka.
Yeah, it's huge because that's
Yeah,
I think
huge
that's
is the
what
word.
happened. It happens huge. It is huge because yesterday when I came up with Dr. Tim and it was around, he said a statement about generating fear that in my mind was generating fear with the thought that I have to keep myself safe, or if I don't know, all around my knowledge situation, if I don't know, then I'm in danger. So that mind energy, with that mind energy of having that particular driver that I wanted to be keep safe, that I wanted to know, and then I had the thought that knowledge keeps me safe. Uh, Underneath it in the disease mind was generating the ongoing fear-based patterns that would then show up in my reality. So I feel that with the mind shifting, there's been a big collapse of that. So yeah, it's really that's so important. And I believe it's not mine. I was saying to Dr. Tim, because in the mind shifting, my mom's sister came through, my father came through, many ancestors were speaking in the mind
Right?
shifting exercise. And it was all about so much stuff about not understanding. Like if I don't understand, if I like just, oh my God, there must have been 3 or 4 pages, all these things, if I don't understand, then this, if I don't understand, then this.
The number one pseudo solution of the non-being mind, if I could just figure this out.
Hmm. Yeah, so
Well,
that,
that's one you're going to come across as you're doing I actually do a list. I don't remember now how many there are in it, 11, 14, 15 pseudo solutions. What the mind tells us, this is what will keep us safe. This is what will do the job.
mhm.
And they're all the pseudo solutions that once again need to, through forgiveness, be dissolved.
Yeah, and it's all I realize now it's all story. None of it's true to sit in the unknown of divine ignorance. And then even in the mind shifting talking about divine ignorance, what the hell does that even mean? I thought, but I got to the point that ignorance was actually, really being in presence of right in the moment. That's where grace resides. I felt that moment. It's just being completely present, and the divine is being connected to Ruka. So divine presence, it was a state I could actually experience energetically that I've not allowed myself to rest in before.
Resting in grace.
Hmm. So yeah, it's really exciting, and these layers that are lifting. So yeah, so appreciate this. Yeah, I just
Very
wanted to,
cool.
it is very cool.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, how's this conversation working for everybody else that's listening? Anyone else have a thought, question, something to share? Well, then, if no one has anything else to share, then we'll breathe and move forward with this. I guess again, I'm looking for words. I love how the Course of Miracles says, truth can't be spoken in words. And of course, what are we all trying to do? Use words to describe what can't be described. But when one surrenders and steps into trust beyond the mind, then directions are given and turning one's resonance, turning one's whole being over to that presence and allowing it to become the purifying force that dissolves anything that is less than love. So the question becomes, what's your most meaningful challenge right now? What's the next piece of work that you're being called to do? What's next in your process?
Well, this is Sally. Can you hear me?
You're loud and clear, young lady.
Good. I guess I'll speak up at this point. I was just sharing earlier in Dr. Tim's radio show. I am probably for the first time in my life dealing with a health situation, kind of a scare like Jeannie went through, um, in a body part of Sally that, I was sort of startled by the information. And then I was given an exposure to all the doctors going into kind of fear places. And, the way you can pick up the frequency and the energy of people when they're like, this is a big deal. Like, we need to see you now. We need to test this,
Sure.
this. And so I was going through all that end of last week, and then I started to recognize myself going down that fear rabbit hole because I've learned to recognize the signs and the symptoms of it and have a holy instant so I can choose again. And I was seeing that moment of a pattern interrupt, and I got real still, got real quiet, and it happened quick. Like I was able to get still really fast. And this very clear
The
voice
fruit
in
of
my
your
head,
labor.
yeah, right. And the voice in my head said, go live. It was very clear. It always is very short and very clear. And I thought, okay, that's my next job. And so I ended up creating a weekend of sailing, which is my greatest passion. And so I was out in the wind, the waves of the wind, and the waves of the water, and the waves of human beings in various, human moments on a big boat. And I was in so much joy and so much presence and so much bliss. And then that was my weekend, being out on the water and living as fully as I've ever lived. And then a Monday morning, I realized, okay, it's Monday. You got some work to do. You got to be leading a Course in Miracles meeting at 10, then deal with the Cleveland Clinic and find out next steps on this body of Sally. It was very methodical and practical, then I was given orders for a biopsy and all this stuff. And then they said, well, we can't do the biopsy for 4 months. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. So it's just been a lot of getting still and noticing the fear traps. And the other thing was I wanted to do the research. I always want to go to pseudo solution number one, as Michael Ryce says so beautifully, trying to think my way through it. And, it's just been always my pseudo solution, or at least my first one. Then I got a whole series. But I don't want to do pseudo solutions. I just want to be in the active presence of love in the now moment as much as I'm capable of. It was kind of like steering a ship. The ship was my own brain. And it was interesting to go through that and to recognize that this new level of gift that I've been given through reconnecting with you, Jeannie, certainly Tim as well, and all of Tim's favorite people, it's just kind of like the community was waiting for me. I just didn't, I was busy doing all the doings of my life. And so when I was ready to be back, the community's still there. And I'm so grateful that I've landed in this really wonderful presence where I can just do the next indicated step and recognize whatever the body of me chooses to do. I'm perfectly okay. And yeah, just grateful for the community. And I don't even remember what prompted me to open my mouth, but I think it was the space that you were offering to just let somebody else speak. And I'm really thankful to Susan and all the others that have made comments and read things because we all enrich each other so beautifully. So thank you. I even chat with Jeannie during the program. So I'm grateful to her too.
Sweet. That's awesome. You know, you go back to Yeshua and you read through all the words that have been written about him, and what much of the world speaks of about him had absolutely nothing to do with what he was about doing. You know,
Right.
if you look, his basic simple bottom line was not, I come to bring you dogma or doctrine, but I come to bring you life.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the best, over the years of doing this work, the best definition I've been able to come up with for life is that life is flowing through a cell.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question to ask oneself, if there's something happening on a cellular level, is there somewhere that I have been inhibiting the flow of love through my cellular structure? Is there
Mm-hmm.
something that I've put there that I need to embrace, or that perhaps was put there, you know, somewhere in my history and my generations, that I need to enhance my skill and my ability of going into that tissue? Literally, you know, one of the early words that I came in touch with when I was working with people doing still point breathing, you know, oftentimes people use the word relax, and you know, at times you'll hear people are screaming relax, like there's not much relaxation in that, but to soften and to allow, especially if there's somewhere that they're thinking about going to take a biopsy, to allow the tissue to just totally and completely soften and open and yield up its content. Is there something there that inhibits from 10 generations ago or 10 minutes ago the flow of the love through these cells, which my offering is, that's the only thing that can create a distortion in our cellular structure? And am I willing to develop the skill and the ability to embrace that? You know, if you go to the opening words in the book of John, where we're told, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. In Aramaic, what it says is, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. And then you watch some of Bruce Lipton's videos on YouTube, and as a cell biologist, what Bruce is showing is that when you think a thought, that thought becomes a molecule. That molecule, neuropeptide, circulates around in the structure till it finds a cell with a receptor site that matches, lands on the cell. And if we were inside of the cell watching that thought, that neuropeptide, land on the receptor site, we'd see the energy of that thought, that creative energy, insert itself through the receptor site, through the antenna, into the cell. And what we would call what's showing up in the cell is chemistry. And to me, the skill and the ability that we need to be developing ultimately, at least in one perspective, is the ability to literally reverse that process, to take what is perhaps distorted chemistry in the cell, be able to access it, and it's the canceling of the goal that's driving the perception that's pained, that is showing us what is in the cell. And the canceling of that goal collapses the perceptual construct. And literally, my take is, it allows us to drop, if we're really willing to listen and to go there, it allows us to drop right into the cell and decode that chemistry and bring it back to awareness. As what's the mind energy here? What's this I'm holding on to? It's one of the ideas of the whole intuitive development process, is to be able to decode energy in ways that are not understood or comprehended or even thought of by the intellect, but to know the nature of that energy directly. And to me, the visual is being able to drop into the tissue, recognizing that tissue is mind energy. If we look at the physicist Max Planck, who won the Nobel Prize for the explanation of quantum physics, says, I've never seen matter. There's no such thing. What we call matter, what we call this atom, the thing that pulls this thing called the atom together, which is what creates, the chemical creates the cell. He says, what does that is an intelligent spirit. And we're willing to develop the intelligence in my spirit nature to take everything that is manifest in my form and to be able to go in, draw it out of the cell, out of its chemical state, back into its mind energy state, and become aware of what that memory is. Bring it forward in the presence of love, and in that is dissolution of the aberrant chemistry. And that's the definition of forgiveness. So holding the space that for you and for each and every one of us, that if that makes sense,
Yes, it does.
in the ability to, just develop that skill, to develop that ability, and to be able to capture. Another method of doing that, aside from the forgiveness process, of course, is the breath, and asking Ruka for guidance and input and support, maybe even in dreams, to show, what is it that I need to be looking at? If in my intellect I have difficulty decoding this chemical in this cell that's distorted, then maybe in my dream state you could show me what it is and teach me to understand what that is that I need to deal with, and exit it from the cell, which the instant it exits from the cell goes it just snaps right back into its natural state, which is health and the ability to conduct love.
Whew, this is my next tall order of duty. This is a really good, everything you just said, so helpful. And I knew you were spot on
Breathing with you.
when I started to feel tears, and I was able to begin the process as you were speaking. So thank you.
And then I just wanted to add.
If it,
Oh, well, is it okay if I say something?
yeah,
Mike?
please go for it.
So I love what Michael shared when I was at the retreat, and I can sense this in your field, Sally, that we have the vitality meter he talked about we'll use a scale of 0 to 100. So obviously you've been doing enough work in your journey and showing up on your own healing journey that you have raised your vitality meter to come up against this next level of distorted energy that resides in the field. So you're above it now, and now you get to unpack and let that out and bring it back to love. And that's a testament to your work and your effort. So I just say bravo, and how to show up in presence and knowing that Ruka has you through this journey, and the willingness to experience this now for the healing for all yourself and all of your ancestors. And what an amazing ancestor you are for this to show up and you to have the capacity to face it.
Ditto. Thank you, Susan.
I love how the Course speaks of it when it says, bring the world you do not want to the one you do. And the practice of being in that world that you do, that world of grace, that world of being, that world of conscious, active, present love, and then to be able to soften, open, breathe into, step up the frequency of whatever dis-ease energies might be present, to bring them forward in the presence of love for dissolution. So bring that world you do not want to the one you do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And that might be a dreamtime visual too. If there's any difficulty in conceiving of what it is, oftentimes, it can be something that's generations and generations old and has been so shut down. It can be a challenge to directly touch into. So even just a visual of whatever it is,
Right.
allow me, even in my dreams and my sleep, to take the deepest breaths into those spaces, let them soften, let them open.
Yeah. Thank you.
Whatever the intelligence was, wherever in this family system that brought this gathering of energetic patterns, quantum particles together, that I can touch into that intelligence, bring it to the presence of love for dissolution, and let the energy go. And doing that literally, that the word that for me most appropriately describes that process is that of overcoming whatever has gone on in our own lives and the generations. And then you hear Yeshua's promise to one who overcomes. And he says to he or she that overcomes, they will not taste of the second death. The first death being the death of being awareness as love and buying into a false self. They will not taste of the second death, which is the death of the body. But breathe. They will become a pillar in the temple of the Creator. What's the temple? The body-mind unit. What's a pillar? It's an eternal fixture. And shall go out no more. Literally, the promise is eternal life. For me personally, several years ago when I had that insight, my request of Ruka at that point was, so Ruka, please show me everything that has ever killed any of my ancestors. Whatever frequency, whatever energy, I asked to be shown it, and I asked to be empowered to dissolve it and heal it. Because the promise, if you do that work, is, and my take, my original work, I don't know if you know this, way back in my early training was in the world of electronics and physics.
Mm-hmm.
And from a physics point of view, what we know is there's only energy. The theologians call it God. The psychologists call it the collective unconscious or whatever. Everybody's got a different name for it, but it's all the same thing. And so if there is only energy and energy is eternal, it can either be created or destroyed, then we must each be eternal. Why do we die? Because there are frequencies within us we refuse to soften into and feel and deal with. And sometimes the feeling aspect of it when it opens can be pretty intense. So just know you've got a whole community here holding the space for you, as I know you are for the community as well. And that
Definitely.
Individually and collectively, we're able to embrace each of those energies, however tragic or whatever they were, to be able to embrace, dissolve, and step out the other side.
Yep. Thank you. Amen.
And a woman,
Thank
in this case, the woman, going for it
you.
and holding a space for you. And notice that each set of ears that's with you listening right now is here as a space to support you in doing that and lend their energy to it.
I feel that. It's grateful.
Sweet. Awesome. Breathing with you.
Breathing with you.
All right. Much appreciation. And everyone, thanks for joining us. It is an honor and a privilege. And I invite everybody to create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world, and the world is definitely in need of it. Like, let's all go right up on that scale. Let's get right up there around the 980, 990, 997, maybe even 1,000, and let's just bring this transformation about. It's time. Appreciate you all. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.